Now, joining us at the roundish table, Professor Geoffrey Garrett, the CEO of the United States Studies Centre at the University of Sydney. Jeff Garrett, welcome.
Hi, John.
Now, we heard from Jim Gilmore there, former Governor of Virginia, talking about the Paul Ryan pick. Yes, it's a good idea, but it's had an unfortunate consequence. It's taken the topic away from the economy generally to Medicare specifically, which he says is a loser for Republicans. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd go a bit broader. So I would say that the Ryan pick wasn't a courageous pick. It showed me that Mitt Romney probably was a little bit desperate. If Romney thought he was going to win, he would have gone down the centre, Rob Portman or somebody like that from Ohio. He thought he needed to energise his base. That doesn't sound like a candidate in a strong position. But more broadly, what Obama is doing in this election is defending the American welfare state. He's saying, yeah, of course we've got to balance the budget in the medium term, but why would you do this when so many Americans are hurting? So the fact that we had Ryan out there saying he wanted to privatise Medicare, probably the most popular part of the American welfare state, as you know, just is polarising and I think plays directly into Obama's hands.
Having said that, I think to myself, if I was a Republican, they have no choice but Medicare to be an issue. Whether they like it or not, Obama is going to run, whoever's vice president, is going to run 1,000 ads about the Republicans are going to take away your Medicare. That is the scare campaign that we're going to run. So doesn't it make sense for them to talk about Medicare now, try and get it off the table, try and neutralise it, which is Romney's trying to do by saying Obama cut Medicare and Obamacare. I'm not going to cut Medicare. They try and neutralise it as an issue and get it out of the way, so it's not such a deficit for them, maybe.
Yeah, but look, what's the problem for Mitt Romney? He's the most inauthentic guy around, right? He looks like an aged Ken of Ken and Barbie dolls. He can't just keep flopping on these things. I mean, remember Rick Santorum beat him to a pulp in the primaries over you can't attack Obamacare because you had Romney care. You know, this guy is all over the map. So how's that going to help him?
Well, yeah, I guess it won't. I was just going to add one other thing, by the way, with Paul Ryan. I've got a theory. I don't know if this is right. I don't know Mitt Romney. But my theory is that while Paul Ryan, his policies are quite extreme, he's quite personally popular amongst the American media, possibly the most popular Republican there is.
Yeah.
So maybe Mitt Romney didn't choose him to cater to the base so much as to cater to the media.
Entirely possible. And, you know, people who know Romney say, listen, they have to accept he's not a great candidate because he's not personable and he doesn't have this authenticity. So they say, listen, he'd actually be a pretty good president because he was a good CEO, he knows how to run the office, he's a smart guy. So maybe that is the kind of balance. But I think the problem is middle America's hurting and it looks like Ryan had a big bazooka that he was aiming at middle America. That's a pretty tough one for me, I think.
For the Republicans heading into their convention week, Jeff, how united do you think they'll be? On the one hand, with Romney and Ryan on the ticket, you bring together the establishment and the fiscal conservatives, the Tea Parties are excited by Ryan, but Todd Akin this week seems to have sort of driven a bit of a wedge between the evangelicals and the establishment. How's this going to play out in Tampa?
Yeah, I mean, look, as I think Bill Schneider said, this is an unmitigated disaster for the Republicans at the national level. You can't sugarcoat it. This is just terrible. But at the end of the day, you know, the Republicans are just appealing to the base at the moment. That's Romney even, who's not a base kind of guy, he's appealing to the base. So I would expect a lot of backslapping, hugging, etc. on the Republican side this week. And as I think also Bill Schneider said, you know, there'll be a bump in the polls. But the big story is still Romney must run against the economy, and the debate has now changed. It's about, do we want to defend or gut the American welfare state? And I think Obama is very happy to be fighting on that terrain, so long as the unemployment rate doesn't go up.
How high could it go, do you think, by November? There's going to be data out just a few days before that election. It's ticked up a couple of times this year.
Yeah, so how high could it go and have Barack Obama re-elected, or how high could it go? You know, I've been saying for 6 months or so that if the unemployment rate in October began with a 7, it's pretty hard to see how Barack Obama could lose, because I think the state-by-state electoral geography is in his favour. If it's in the 8s and it looks like it's tipping up, and there are these forces beyond the US control in Europe and in China in particular that are looking bad, if it ticks up, you know, Obama's going to have to do beyond the unprecedented here. He'd be not only way above the highest ever unemployment rate at which a president was re-elected, but if the trend is still going up, that defies the normal story that it's the momentum that matters, which is what happened, as you remember, for Ronald Reagan in 1984. The unemployment rate was high, but he brought it down from the 12s into the 7s.
Okay, another story which is probably going to play out throughout the election of an economic nature is the CBO story we alluded to before. We're talking about the fiscal cliff, where we have a lot of tax hikes and fiscal cuts coming down the road in January.
Yep.
Is there any way the American can get out of this unscathed? Where you have where you either have a massive increase in the deficit or you have unemployment go up. They're two options. Can they get out of it?
Well, the stakes here are so high, as they were in the debt ceiling debacle, whatever it was, in August last year. The stakes are so high that you'd think at the end of the day, despite all the political posturing, they'll do a sensible deal, a sort of split the difference deal. And the fact
they didn't last time.
Well, they did at the end. They did right at the end. But remember, this time they've got cover. They do it in the lame duck session. So the elections happen, but the new Congress and the new president haven't been inaugurated. So normally that's the time when sanity should prevail. I'd be worried at the moment, from the standpoint of the global economy, actually, that let's say that the Republicans come in and they come in on we must cut the size of government and we must do it today, and that leads them to blow up a deal in the lame duck session. That's a really bad outcome, not only for the United States economy, but for the world economy.
So in that scenario, the automatic cuts then come in ahead of President Romney taking the oath of office, and then presumably there will be more cuts to government spending.
More cuts.
Which is austerity.
Yes, and of course, when you look at Obama compared to Europe, why has Obama not been so critical of Greece, France, etc.? It's because the Southern European policy is the US policy. It hasn't been austerity. It's been to say, listen, when things are going really badly, we've got to tolerate red ink on the budget.
And an important thing which people don't take into consideration is it's not just the deal, the debt deal. Obama's tax cuts all expire at the end of the year.
They're the Bush tax cuts.
So,
They're the Bush tax cuts.
But the tax cuts expire at the end of the year, and also the unemployment benefits extensions all expire at the end of the year. There's a whole bunch of things expiring all at once. So there's going to be a lot of pain one way or another.
Finally, Geoff, on the point that Jim Gilmore made where he said that the state of the American economy is now a national security issue with implications for Australia as well. Is that just what you'd expect to hear from a former RNC chairman, or is there something to it?
I think you would. So, a couple of things I always say about defence spending. I was looking at a graph today of percentage of world defence spending in the United States. So in the last couple of years, it's come down a bit. It's come down to 46% of total military spending in the world is done by the United States. That's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say is that even before September the 11th, even before George Bush, the US government wanted to cut defence spending because it wasn't fighting the Cold War anymore. So this is a logical trend, and I don't think Australians should be so worried about it.
Well, Geoff, Garrett, good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us at the Roundish Table this week. And that is all the time we have for Planet America.